Leaving Europe for Paraguay. I'm joined here by Russ. He is a client of Nomad Elite, and he just came here to apply for Paraguayan residency. Obviously, there are some key issues in Europe, which we are going to address in this video.
So for me, I would say the number one driving factor would be the idea of freedom, because Europe seems to be going in the wrong direction, more authoritarian, and Paraguay offers kind of more laissez-faire approach to things, and especially now that Europe wants to introduce the digital currency in October, I believe it is, of this year. So I think within a couple of months, possibly a year or two, there will be some restrictions for sure, taking capital out of Europe or being restricted in this way. So I was looking around, and Paraguay seems to be one of the best options to get away from it all, even possibly the threat of war, should there be one. This is also a good spot to kind of get away from it all. And taxes are also lucrative. That was the second thing. So if you want to start a business, and it's very good for that as well.
Now, let's focus a little bit more on the CBDC side of things, right? You said you're worried about the EU introducing the CBDC, correct?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Which obviously entails a lot of downsides. Something that I see on the horizon that's going to be the result of the CBDC is going to be how governments, and especially those in the European Union, will use a digital currency to control inflation, to control your very own spending. So I think people aren't aware of that. Like potentially within the next 5 to 8 years, Russ, the EU could say, hey, you have a passport of Slovakia. Okay. I don't know what you are going to be pulling in terms of a pension, in terms of like income. But the government could easily say, good, we have huge deficits in Europe. We want you to spend 80 to 90% of your income in the EU, right?
Yes.
Versus outside the EU. Do you think that's a likely scenario to play out, or do you think I'm out of my mind?
No, I think actually that's highly likely to play out this way. They will be controlling, they're already talking about it now, basically using people's pensions for other EU activities, which are not voted for by any of the EU citizens. And they also may raise either the pension age, so they make you work longer, or you get less, one or the other, because now there's also a lot more immigration into Europe, which is going to have to be compensated for by the working class in Europe. So that's also going to be an issue. And with the CBDCs, that brings a whole bunch of other issues in there, which kind of spans into the whole climate change, CO2. They're talking about restricting the amount of meat you can eat, believe it or not. I just watched another video basically where UK is introducing some legislature into law where you're limited to how much you can travel, believe it or not. So I think it's any more than 4 flights within a year, you're getting flagged, and they're going to start basically auditing you. Why you're traveling, what's the purpose, this and that. So I think also with that, CBDCs are also going to be programmable money, which is also another thing that's kind of frightening. Say it expires like a coupon, or they can control you with anything, basically, how you spend it, what you buy, and anything of that sort. So I prefer to use cash, or have the option to do that. I think that's what retains the essential freedom.
So you're telling me I'm not out of my mind?
No.
Okay. There are two very important terms, awake people and asleep people. So you'd consider yourself awake, and that's why you came to Paraguay. You know the reason why the EU started. The EU started out as a great concept to help its citizens to move freely throughout the Union. That was the whole premise on which the EU was built on back then, right? And also the movement of goods and services without having to pay tax, like import taxes and sales taxes and all of that, right?
Yes.
Now, they delivered on that promise big time, I think, because today that is still the case. Those are still the benefits of the EU. However, they did not warn us about the potential downfalls that the EU would bring with it, which we started to really see in 2014, 2015, when our beloved Angela Merkel started opening up the borders like crazy, right?
Yes.
I actually met her not too long ago, yes. So I think back then, which is almost like 11 years ago, the main reason to open up the borders back then was to fill labor shortages, right? I truly believe that was the real intent at the time. In 2014, 2015, there was a crisis that was legitimate because of the war in the Middle East, and
Yes.
there was a good reason to make a certain decision back then. But now I think it's almost done by default. There's no thinking behind it, it seems, right? What's your take on uncontrolled immigration in Europe? I know that a country like Slovakia is less affected by uncontrolled migration than a country like Germany, Austria, right? Those countries in like Western Europe are much more affected by it because that's where people, well, let's call them the new Austrians, the new Germans, the new French.
Yes, that's right.
The new Spanish, right? That's where they get most of their benefits, so that's where they go. I don't know if that's the case in Hungary. I don't think that's the case in Poland. I don't think that's the case in Slovakia either, right?
Correct.
So what's your take on the migration situation in Europe? Do you see it benefiting Europe in the long term? What's your take on this?
Well, I think it is unsustainable because the migration numbers are out of control. And nobody's checking any limitations or anything. So it'll be interesting how it plays out between the rebel four Eastern European countries, if you want to call it that, Slovakia, Czech Republic, Poland, and Hungary, among others, because they're now starting to get penalized by the EU. So EU as a whole is becoming more political rather than economic union, which was intended to be at the beginning, like you stated, but now it's turning more political. So in those four countries, I would say, the migration is not really an issue. So it's still more of a homogeneous population there. And I mean, migration is okay, but the migrants have to learn the language, adjust to the culture. No problem in that case. I mean, that's kind of what we had to do because I'm actually a hybrid. So I'm originally from Slovakia, but I lived most of my life in Canada. So from 11 until 6 years ago, basically, I was in Canada. And I also never thought I would leave Canada yet. It's happening again. So in Canada, communism coming full force by the liberals. So it was hard to get a job. So I was forced to move back to Europe where you could find work. And I ended up working in Germany. But overall, the immigration is unsustainable. Same in Canada. They're drawing in millions of immigrants. And they're all getting funded by the government, aka taxes, which is the taxpayers, essentially. So I think it is intentional for either create a crisis, which you can bring the CBDC, and then a lot of people will either be jobless, relying on the government. So it's good to take precautions in advance before that happens. I would say better 2 years early than a day too late. So.
Now, you were just talking about how you left Slovakia for Canada for a better life. And very recently, you left Canada for a different country to have a better life again. There's obviously an ongoing hot war in Eastern Europe that's not really coming to an end. Do you see the war ending? Do you see it expanding? What's your take on this?
I would say the war is actually going to escalate, as I've heard that NATO wants to send 250,000 troops into Ukraine and start attacking also the Russian targets. So I believe the war may escalate. And then I'm scared, basically, that there may be conscription as well, again, and mandatory military service if they run out of people. They're going to start going for civilians after. And like I said, Slovakia wants to remain neutral from the government that was elected in the last cycle. And EU basically views it if you're not sending money to Ukraine and weapons and everything, you're automatically pro-Russian. But normally Slovakia just wants to stay neutral. So that's how I see things. So it's going to be interesting how it plays out with the EU and the clash they're going to have. Same with Hungary. This is exactly the same thing. And I think Orban has already been penalized a couple of times. The Euro funds have been withdrawn or limited. So it makes sense to fight up to a point, but when you see the momentum shifting, so I don't see the momentum swinging the other way, and it's basically almost pointless to fight against the current. So I would say it's definitely time to start looking for plan B for sure, whether it be Paraguay or other options, but I would say it's a good location here.
What about the US or Canada? Would you say that those are good options, or would you say no, it's too late to move there?
Definitely not too late. I still think there's time, even though I think the window may be closing soon, or not closing, but more restrictive to get here. So,
like, how difficult was it to move into Canada? You said like 15 to 20 years ago?
When we came to Canada.
Yeah.
No, when I was 11. So that was, we actually escaped communism. That was like, we were one of the last refugees. We went through Sweden, and then we had an uncle there who sponsored us. So we ended up in Canada. So from communism, and then looks like Canada's heading this way again as well. So based on what I see when I visit, and from my friends and family as well in there. So
what year did you move out of Europe into Canada?
It was 89, basically.
That's the year I was born.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was born in 89. Good.
I was just a kid, so I could only comprehend a little bit of what's happening. But
now that we undressed all the bad stuff here, what positives do you see in Europe?
UK is definitely going downhill. I don't see that getting any better. France, Germany. I mean, I would like to think of positive things, but based on compared to what it used to be, let's say 10, 15 years ago, I think it's not going to get any better, honestly.
So you recommend leaving Europe altogether? For
I would say
better
the
life?
only potential might be Eastern Europe, depending on how they play. But I think EU is stronger and they will override the wants of the Eastern European countries. That's my take. But
which countries do you recommend in Eastern Europe?
Poland is good if they do not vote the liberal government in. Slovakia is holding up now as well, based on the elections as well. Hungary, so it depends. So basically for safety, for families, I think that's good. Whether it's good financially, that's another question. I mean, business taxes, Slovakia, I think is 21% corporate tax, and then 7% if you want to take the money out of the corporation. So overall it's 28, so not the lowest, but, and then if you're working normal employees, I think you're getting about 40, 45 altogether with social benefits and everything else. So it's quite high.
45% in taxes.
Well, okay, let's say 40. Yeah.
I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
If you're interested in moving to Paraguay, Panama, Uruguay, Albania, Bulgaria, or Serbia, please book a consultation with us today. Go to nomadelite.com and click on book a consultation. Thank you so much for watching Nomad Elite. I truly appreciate your attendance, and I look forward to helping you relocate to Latin America or Europe.